I didn't know I was already being set up until lunch got quiet when I sat down. Not silent, just that subtle shift. The kind where conversations don't stop, but people suddenly become interested in their food. Marceline York slid into the seat across from me like nothing was wrong. Same soft voice. Same sweet smile. The kind that always made professors trust her first. That morning, she leaned over my laptop while I was finishing my research paper. "Your structure is so clean," she'd said. "Can you send me your outline? I just want to compare formats." Normal request. We studied together all the time. She'd asked for drafts before. I'd never said no. So I sent it. At lunch, I heard my name from the other end of the table. I mean, if someone needs that much help, it gets blurry, right? I looked up, two girls from our class glanced at me, then away. I forced a laugh. What did I miss? Nothing. One of them said too fast. I looked at Marceline. She gave a small shrug, like she was embarrassed for me. "Oh," she said gently, loud enough for them to hear. "They just think we work really closely. I told them you rely on my outlines sometimes, but it's not a big deal. Rely. Not share, not study together. Rely." It landed wrong, but at that moment I didn't know what I was supposed to say. So I laughed again, nodded, acted like it didn't bother me. And I didn't know it yet, but that outline I had shared would be the first thread in a rope she was planning to hang me with. Because by the end of the week, the email arrived. Subject: Notice of academic misconduct. My hands went cold before I even opened it. "You are being formally investigated for plagiarism." I stared at it, frozen. My paper, my hours of work. And the one person I thought I could trust had already set the stage to ruin me. I didn't reply to the email right away. I just sat there on my dorm bed, laptop open, rereading the subject line like it might change if I blinked enough. Academic misconduct. Plagiarism. Those words didn't belong anywhere near my name. I'd always been the careful one, the oversighter, the one who panicked about paraphrasing too closely, the one who double-checked page numbers like my life depended on it. But suddenly my entire academic record was hanging on a complaint someone had filed with confidence. And I already knew who. My phone buzzed. "Marceline? Hey, I heard something weird today. Are you okay?" I stared at the message. She heard something. She didn't ask what happened. She asked if I was okay, like she was watching the fallout of something she'd already set in motion. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the email. It was formal, cold, no emotion. A faculty member had reported that my recent paper showed concerning similarity to another student's submission. An investigation panel would review both works. I had 48 hours to respond. They didn't name her. They didn't have to, because I remembered something from 2 nights ago. We were in the library. I was revising my thesis section. She kept glancing at my screen. "You always structure your arguments the same way," she'd said, smiling. "It's kind of your signature." I laughed at the time. Thought it was a compliment. Now it felt like reconnaissance. My laptop chimed again. "Marceline, I told them we just study together. Don't stress." Told who? My chest tightened. I scrolled up through our chat history. There it was. A pattern I'd never questioned. "Can you send your intro draft? Your citations look cleaner, can I see? How did you phrase your literature review?" Just the outline is fine. Always small pieces. Never the whole thing. Enough to compare. Enough to learn formatting. Enough to build a mirror. I stood up too fast, pacing the room. Because this wasn't just an accusation. This meant she had already submitted something. Something close enough to mine that the system flagged it. Which meant one of two things. Either I copied her, or she copied me first. And judging by the timing of that email, she'd moved before I even submitted my final version. My phone buzzed again. A class group chat. Esme Harper. "Did anyone else get an academic integrity notice about citation rules today? Or just me?" "It was random." "Too random," Marceline replied almost instantly. "Marceline?" "Yeah, they're being strict lately. Some people don't realize collaboration has limits. Some people, I could feel it happening in real time. The narrative was forming without me. Not Saphira is being accused, but Saphira crossed a line. Saphira depends on others. Saphira maybe doesn't understand the rules. She wasn't attacking me. She was positioning herself as the responsible one standing near the problem. That's when the fear shifted. It stopped being, what if I get in trouble? And became, how long has she been preparing this? Because this didn't feel impulsive. It felt like someone who had slowly, patiently collected pieces of my work, waiting for the moment those pieces could be rearranged into a weapon. And the worst part? I helped her load it. The next morning, my campus ID didn't open the research lab. At first, I thought the scanner was broken. I tried again. Same red light, the quiet mechanical denial felt louder than a siren. Access restricted. The screen read. My stomach dropped. That lab was where I'd been working on the paper. Behind me, someone cleared their throat. I turned to see two students from my methodology class waiting. One of them gave me a tight, sympathetic smile, the kind people use when they already know something you don't want them to. Maybe try admin? She said softly. Not confused. Not surprised. Just confirming. I walked away before my face could give me away. By the time I reached the main quad, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Notifications stacked on top of each other. Group chats? I wasn't even active in. Private messages. Missed calls from my mom. I opened the department portal. A banner sat at the top of my profile. Academic status under review. Enrollment actions temporarily restricted. Not guilty, not cleared. Just suspended in the air like a question mark everyone could see. I finally opened the formal complaint document attached to the email. The reporting student Marceline York. There it was. In writing, she claimed I had blurred academic boundaries, that I had heavily referenced her structural framework, and that after extensive collaborative study, my submission closely mirrored her intellectual property. Intellectual property. I had sent her an outline, she turned it into ownership. There were screenshots attached, fragments of my own drafts, sent from my account, timestamps visible, but only some timestamps, the ones that made it look like she wrote first. My hand started shaking. Because I recognized those screenshots, she'd asked for those versions late at night, saying she was stuck and just needed to see how I organized transitions. I had sent them casually, half asleep. And now they were exhibits. I left the building without realizing I was walking. My mind kept replaying every time she'd leaned over my laptop. Every, can you send that section? Every, just curious how you phrased this. Not curiosity. Collection. By noon, the social shift was complete. People weren't avoiding me dramatically. That would have been easier. Instead, they were careful. Too polite, too neutral. Esme Harper caught up to me outside the cafeteria. Hey, she said breathless. Is it bad? I wanted to say no. I wanted to laugh like yesterday, but my voice came out thin. She filed it. Esme's eyes widened. Wait, officially? I nodded. She looked back toward the building like it might be listening. She told me last week you'd been using her outlines a lot. I thought she was exaggerating. There it was again. The groundwork. This wasn't a surprise attack. It was a slow character rewrite. And I hadn't even noticed the edits. My email pinged, graduation eligibility hold placed pending investigation outcome. My vision blurred. That word, graduation, hit harder than the accusation. This wasn't about one paper. This was my degree, my record, my future job applications. Frozen because someone decided to reframe my help as theft, I went back to my dorm, shut the door, and opened my laptop. Not to defend myself emotionally, but because a cold thought had finally formed. If she had screenshots, then so did I. Every draft I ever made, auto-saved. Every edit logged. Every file with creation data, and for the first time since the email arrived, my fear shifted into something sharper. Because if she had carefully chosen pieces of the timeline, then the rest of the timeline might tell a very different story. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought I would. Thought I'd spiral, call someone, beg the universe to rewind a week. But something else took over instead. A kind of quiet, mechanical focus. The kind you get when panic burns out and leaves survival behind. I opened my laptop and didn't look at her messages again. I went straight to my files. Not the final paper, the folder behind it. Drafts, backups, autosaves. Every messy version I never meant anyone to see. I clicked Properties on the first draft. Created 3 weeks ago. Last modified 2:14 a.m., 4 days before submission. I opened version history, line by line, my argument forming, bad sentences, deleted paragraphs, half-written ideas I'd rewritten later. You can't fake that kind of mess. No one plagiarizes the ugly middle. I moved to the next file. Then the one before that. A timeline was forming. And the more I looked, the calmer I got. Because if this was a crime, then it was the worst planned one in history on my side. But that calm didn't last. I opened our chat again, scrolled, screenshots she submitted. She'd cropped them, removed file paths, cut out version numbers, kept only the parts that made the text look polished, like it had been finished already. She didn't steal my paper. She stole the illusion of authorship. My email chimed. An automated notice. You may submit supporting documentation before the hearing panel review. Not optional. A chance. Or a test. I started compiling everything. Screenshots weren't enough. I exported version logs. File metadata. Creation timestamps. Edit history. Then I noticed something strange. One of the drafts she had submitted in her complaint, the one she claimed was hers first, had a phrase I remembered deleting from my early version. A clumsy sentence I'd fixed later. I searched my drafts. There it was. Same wording, same typo, same mistake I'd corrected. Which meant she didn't just mirror structure. She had an older version of my work. I leaned back slowly. That version, I never posted publicly. Never emailed to a professor. Never uploaded to a shared drive. There was only one place she could have gotten it. From me. From one of those late-night, can you send your draft messages? But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what came next. I opened the plagiarism report attachment again, scrolled past the comparison. There was another name listed in the similarities section. Another student's paper flagged as overlapping with hers. Not me. Someone else. Small percentage, buried in the report. But still there, I searched the student directory, different class, different major, same semester. I opened her old social media. There was a post from months ago. Library table, laptop open, Marceline in the background. Smiling, same pose she used when she studied with me. A pattern doesn't start with you. You just happen to be the one where it breaks? My phone buzzed. A private message from Esme. Hey, this is weird, but Marceline asked me last term for my policy paper outline too. I didn't think about it then. My heart didn't race. It sank. Because now this wasn't defense. This was documentation of a method. And she didn't look nervous. She was still posting like nothing was happening. Still replying in chats. Still acting like I was the one on trial. Because she thought I was. She thought this was a story where she played the whistleblower. And I played the cautionary tale. I closed my laptop gently. Not angry, not scared, just aware. She didn't report me because she thought I cheated. She reported me because she needed to move first. Before anyone noticed how many papers she'd built out of other people's scaffolding. And now the only question wasn't, how do I prove I didn't plagiarize? It was, how many others has she done this to? The email didn't come from a professor. It came from Crestfall Institute IT Services. Subject line, file verification request, academic integrity case. Cold. Procedural. No emotion. They weren't asking what happened. They were asking for my devices. Upload folders. Cloud backups. External drives, any location where drafts may exist. It should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else. Relief. Because liars fear full timelines. Truth survives them. I spent 2 hours compiling everything. Original draft folders, autosave directories, backup logs, even the messy final_final2.docx versions I'd been embarrassed to keep. Nothing polished. Nothing staged. Just the ugly, chronological trail of work. When I hit upload, it felt less like defense and more like handing someone a map. That afternoon, campus felt different. Not socially. Structurally, Marceline didn't show up to our seminar. That alone wasn't suspicious. What was suspicious was the professor's mood. Short, distracted. Kept checking his email. At one point, he stopped mid-sentence and just stared at his laptop. Then closed it slowly. Class ended early. Outside, 2 administrative staff I'd never seen before were waiting near the department office. Not security, not dramatic. Just quiet observers. The kind institutions send when things are no longer a student misunderstanding. My phone buzzed. Esme. Okay, this is getting weird. The girl from my policy class just told me Marceline asked for her draft structure too last term. I typed back before I could overthink it. Did she say why? Same thing. Just comparing formats. Formats, outlines, structures. She never stole finished work. She stole frameworks. The skeleton that makes ideas stand. You can change words, you can shuffle paragraphs, but argument structure is like a fingerprint. And she'd been collecting them. My inbox pinged again. Another IT email. Additional cross-course similarity detected. Expanding review. I read that line 3 times. Cross-course. Not just me. Not just one assignment. She hadn't framed me because I was easy. She framed me because I was the most recent. The most convenient person to push under the spotlight. While the rest stayed buried, I imagined her confidence yesterday. How calm she looked at lunch. How she texted like she was checking on me. Because in her head, this was controlled. A small fire she could point at while no one noticed the smoke behind her. What she didn't expect was digital history to have a longer memory than hers. Evening came. My graduation hold email updated. Status unchanged. Pending expanded review. Expanded. That word wasn't about me anymore. My phone lit up with a new message. Marceline, hey, have they contacted you again? There it was. Not concern. Monitoring. I stared at the typing box, then put the phone face down, because for the first time since this started, I realized something. I wasn't the only one being reviewed. I just happened to be the first domino she tipped, and now the system was tracing the line backward. The scariest part? She still thought this was about one paper. She thought the investigation had a ceiling. She didn't realize she had filed a complaint inside a system designed to check patterns. And patterns don't stop where you want them to. They stop where the data runs out. The official letter came printed. Not email, not portal notification. A physical envelope slipped under my dorm door like something final. Crestfall Institute seal. Inside, graduation eligibility status, on hold. Not delayed, not under review. Held. Like my future was an object someone had put on a shelf until further notice. I sat on the floor reading it, back against the bed, the paper shaking slightly in my hands. If the panel ruled against me, the hold would become a mark. Not suspension, not expulsion. Something worse. Academic integrity violation, permanent record. Employers wouldn't see nuance. They'd see the label. And that label sticks longer than truth. I checked the date. Hearing scheduled. 9 days. 9 days to defend 3 years of work. 9 days while rumors did their own investigation without rules. I walked to campus anyway, because staying inside felt like surrender. In the hallway outside the registrar's office, I overheard my name. Yeah, the plagiarism case. They weren't whispering cruelly. They sounded careful, like discussing weather before a storm. That hurt more. Public humiliation is loud. Reputation erosion is quiet. Esme caught up with me on the steps. You look like you didn't sleep. I didn't. She hesitated. Marceline told people you might have misunderstood collaboration rules. I stopped walking. She said that? Esme nodded slowly. She made it sound like she warned you before filing. Warned me. The story was evolving. Now she wasn't just the victim. She was the responsible one who tried to help first. That's when I understood the real danger. Evidence doesn't just fight facts. It fights narratives. And narratives spread faster. I went to the academic integrity office to confirm my hearing time. The administrator didn't look at me like I was guilty. She looked tired, like she'd seen this play before. You should submit all draft histories, she said calmly. Full version logs, not excerpts. Not excerpts. A quiet warning, because excerpts can lie. Full timelines don't. Outside the building, I saw Marceline across the quad. Laughing. Phone in hand. Relaxed posture. She wasn't spiraling. She wasn't scared. She was waiting. Because in her mind, I was already behind. Already reacting. Already explaining. And people who defend themselves look guilty to observers who don't know context. She had moved first. That's what gave her confidence. My phone buzzed. New system message. The panel will review cross-student submission similarities. Cross-student again. This case was widening. But the hold on my graduation stayed, because institutions move slowly, even when truth moves fast. That night, I laid every document out on my desk, like evidence in a crime movie. Not to prove innocence, but to understand timing. Because if she submitted her version before mine, then she thought she had secured authorship position. But version history doesn't just show dates. It shows evolution. And evolution is hard to fake unless you've lived inside the document. I finally opened her message from earlier. Let me know if you need anything. I almost laughed. Need anything? Like she wasn't the reason my degree was frozen. Like she wasn't sleeping peacefully while I calculated the difference between accusation and proof. That's when the fear fully changed shape. It stopped being, what if I lose? And became, she really thinks she's safe. I submitted my evidence at 2:17 a.m., not because I was dramatic, because I couldn't sleep knowing it was still in my possession instead of theirs. The upload bar filled slowly. Every draft folder, every version log, every autosave. No summaries, no explanations. Just the full record of my work existing over time. When it finished, the portal displayed a simple line, documentation received. No comfort, no reassurance. But I didn't need it, because I knew something Marceline didn't. She curated. I archived. The next afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown campus number. I stepped outside to answer. This is the Academic Integrity Office, the voice said. Calm. Neutral. We've reviewed your submission timeline. We'll be expanding the scope of the review. Expanding. Again, but this time the tone was different. Less procedural. More confirmed. I didn't ask what that meant. If they were calling me, it meant the direction had shifted. That same evening, something subtle happened. Marceline stopped posting. Not immediately. Gradually. No more comments in class chats. No more casual replies. Her confidence didn't collapse loudly. It thinned, like someone who suddenly realized the room had more exits than they thought. Esme texted me. Okay, so IT asked me if I ever shared drafts with Marceline. They're asking other students too. There it was. The domino effect. This wasn't my case anymore. It was a pattern audit. And patterns don't care who started the conversation. They care who appears in it repeatedly. I went to class the next day. Marceline was there. But she wasn't sitting in her usual seat. She was in the back, laptop closed, hands folded. Listening, not contributing. That was new. Because Marceline loved sounding intelligent in public. Now she was conserving words, which means she was calculating. After class, she approached me, not smiling this time. You submitted a lot, she said quietly. I held her gaze. Yes, she nodded once, like she respected the move. But there was something else there now. Uncertainty. You didn't have to make it bigger, she said. I almost said something. Almost offended. Almost explained. But then I remembered. I wasn't the one who made it bigger. She filed the complaint. She chose the system. I just gave it data, so I said nothing, and walked past her. That silence hit harder than any accusation could have. Because for the first time since this started, she wasn't looking at me like a mistake she'd correct. She was looking at me like a variable she hadn't predicted. That night, an email came. Short, administrative, hearing panel materials updated to include cross-student comparisons. Not alleged, not potential, included. The avalanche had started. And I hadn't pushed it. I just stopped standing underneath it. The door to the academic integrity hearing room closed with a soft click, but it sounded heavier than anything I'd experienced all semester. The space was sparse, sterile almost. White walls reflected fluorescent light so sharply that it made every movement precise, almost surgical. A long, polished oak table ran down the center. 3 faculty members sat on one side, lined up like judges in a gallery. Across from them, a single IT analyst had a laptop open, eyes scanning data. At the far end, the academic integrity officer sat silently, pen poised over a notepad. Marceline York walked in behind me, heels clicking lightly against the tile. Her posture was perfect, shoulders back, chin high, like she already owned the room. Her calm, rehearsed presence contrasted sharply with the sterile environment. She didn't glance at me, didn't acknowledge anyone but the panel, as if this whole room were stage props for her performance. The first faculty member gestured toward the IT analyst. Miss Lane, the analyst said without raising his voice, we've completed a chronological review of submitted documents from both parties. A screen flickered to life on the wall, projecting side-by-side timelines of 2 students' documents. One column showed gradual, messy development over weeks. Paragraphs formed, broke apart, and reappeared in different drafts. The other column showed polished blocks appearing fully formed, nearly identical to previously submitted materials from multiple students. Patterns indicate repeated structural reuse from external student sources. the analyst continued. Not all submissions are linked to Miss Lane. Marceline's face remained controlled, but her hands curled into fists on the table. Her jaw tightened imperceptibly, her eyes flicking toward the screen. She didn't speak. She just waited, trying to measure each statement, trying to reclaim composure. The panel leaned in slightly. Miss York, can you explain the origin of these document structures? The chair asked, voice calm but insistent. Marceline opened her mouth, hesitated, then said, We collaborate in study groups. We often share outlines. I didn't realize this would be interpreted as a violation. Her tone was smooth, defensive, rehearsed. She thought she could talk around it. The IT analyst clicked to the next slide. Highlighted sections appeared, showing repeated structural patterns across different courses and different semesters, not just one assignment. Multiple student submissions overlapped with her documents. The silence in the room thickened. Every tick of the clock felt amplified. Another faculty member spoke. Additionally, statements from other students confirmed that similar requests for draft structures were made. The pattern suggests a systemic collection of intellectual frameworks. Marceline's eyes widened, a subtle tremor in her otherwise controlled posture. She blinked rapidly, processing the scale of what was unfolding. She was no longer in control. Every move she had made, every assumption of safety was now visible as a pattern. She leaned slightly forward. This isn't a fair representation, she said, voice low, almost pleading. But the panel didn't flinch. The analyst didn't flinch. The integrity officer remained still, absorbing, documenting. The final slide appeared. A timeline matrix across multiple courses, highlighting document reuse. The system had mapped her pattern fully. She wasn't being accused of one action anymore. She was being assessed as a network, a repeated method. Her composure cracked. A small intake of breath. She shifted in her seat. Every previous confidence, every careful calculation, collapsed silently in front of the room that didn't need drama to enforce judgment. She finally glanced at me, not with anger, not with accusation, just recognition. Recognition that the table had turned, that the controlled persona she relied on to manipulate everyone had no power here. And for the first time, she understood the difference between thinking she was winning and realizing she was losing. The panel didn't sugarcoat anything. They made it clear that Marceline's actions had consequences. She wouldn't be submitting any more assignments this semester. Group projects? Off limits. Campus labs? No access. They even required her to take a mandatory ethics and academic integrity course, and that would appear formally on her transcript, a permanent reminder of what she'd done. On top of that, her case was being referred to the dean's disciplinary committee for potential long-term sanctions. She had painted herself as the perfect student, the careful one who warned others, but the system didn't buy it. Every manipulation, every stolen structure, every fabricated timeline had been exposed, and now the consequences were catching up with her. As for me, the moment they announced that my graduation hold was lifted, a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying finally disappeared. My degree, my record, my reputation, all cleared. I didn't rush to celebrate. I didn't need to. I just breathed, feeling the tension ease out of my shoulders. Months of fear, sleepless nights, and anxiety over a future that felt threatened were suddenly validated. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could move forward without constantly watching my back. I had my files, my drafts, every time-stamped version, proof that I had done nothing wrong. And now, the system had my side too. Walking across campus that day, breathing in the winter air, letting the sunlight hit my face, I had regained more than just access to labs or a degree. I had reclaimed my control, my reputation, and the certainty that no one could quietly rewrite my story again. That night, I backed up every file, every time-stamped draft, every version history onto a secure drive. Not out of fear, but discipline. Because power isn't about revenge in words. It's about preparation, timing, and knowing the truth can survive scrutiny. Marceline's attempts had taught me one final lesson. Those who move first with malice will eventually meet a system and a person who can move smarter. I wasn't just cleared. I had won quietly, completely, and definitively.